So, Shabbat Shalom, good morning. That I've been told many things. One is that normally for Minyan Chavarim, when they're leading the services they've done this morning, and I want to thank them, that there is what I call Torah banter, and that's the learning that takes place, right? That there's a discussion, and it's vibrant, and it's wonderful. And today there was no Torah banter for whatever reason, so I will be the banter. But I didn't know that. So I'm going to pose questions. We're going to look at text together, and I don't have an answer to it, which is actually the best way. So this will be interactive. I have two questions from the Parsha, one from the Siddur, and so I expect us to be back and forth. This is also maybe priming the pump for when Miriam speaks after Kiddush today. This is a very interactive group normally. So I'm raising the bar of expectations that she has for you now, so you better deliver. So the first question that I have, let's see, between this twisted page saver here and random pieces of paper that I had, I marked up a few spots. So first is, let's turn to 380 or so. Yeah, 380. 380. Yeah, it's actually, 380. So it says on 380, that you'll mark this as the beginning of the months, right? Because this is when we became a people, right? The Exodus is when we become the Jewish people, an actual peoplehood. Speak to the whole community of Israel and say, on the 10th of the month, each of them shall take a lamb. Okay, so the 10th of the month is the date that they're supposed to take it. But then a few verses later, we see that they actually do the sacrificing, the lentils, right? What do we do? Right, put the blood on it. And what do we do today, symbolically representing that? Mezuzah, right, don't do blood. So, but do mezuzah. But that's not until the 14th. So my question is, between the 10th and the 14th, we take the lamb on the 10th. We don't do the sacrifice until the 14th. The commentary here says that there's no real explanation as to what we're supposed to do in that interim time. So what are your thoughts on why are we supposed to wait? What are we supposed to learn from this? What are we supposed to, right? The rabbis, I'm sure, have commentary on it, but we are the rabbis of today. And so, Michael, what do you think? Why are we supposed to have this way? The carp in the bathtub, right. So, carp in the bathtub, great Talmudic reference or children's book. That what Michael says is that because it becomes more special. Maybe you develop a relationship with the carp or the lamb, right? And that the sacrifice actually makes it harder to do then, right? Because you have a relationship, and because it's more hard, more difficult, it's more special as well, because you're really not just making an animal sacrifice, but you are sacrificing a low-level relationship that you have. Is that fair? Right? Certainly one idea. Other thoughts? What are we supposed to do between the 10th and the 14th here? Oh, okay, so it just took time for everyone to gather their lambs, and you had a few days to do that. Okay, that's another idea. Yeah, Sig.
It says to keep watch over.
Right. So what does that mean, to keep watch over it?
Inspect it, to protect it, therefore it's maybe an allusion to what we're doing for the Israeli people, for the Jewish people.
Well, I love it, except for the sacrificing part of the. But I love the idea of. Right, so that we are supposed to care for something, sort of building off of Michael's idea, right, and Sue's idea that everyone can get it, that maybe that there is supposed to be some intentionality here, that you are watching over it and being intentional about what is happening, also preparing ourselves to be ready for this exodus that's going to be taking place. So, yeah.
Also a little bit of a test. You have something and you have to wait. And it's a way.
Delayed gratification.
And also it's about following the commandment, right? Like they were commanded to wait. They got something and they have to wait a certain measure of time and then follow the instructions.
I like the idea that they get the commandment on the 10th. They have to wait until the 14th. How serious are they going to be if they can't follow a simple rule like watching over the lamb for 4 days? How are they going to take on what we know is all of these commandments? And the answer is they can't, because the golden calf isn't too much later, right, after it. So pause. Oh, that's good. That you have to wait. You have to wait to test that to make sure that the lamb is okay to be sacrificed. We have to inspect it, not just protect it, but to inspect it to make sure that it's kosher. And then, okay, Mitchell and David, and then we're going to move on to the next question.
So I'm reading ahead, but it says.
It's okay. We've read the whole thing before, so. Yeah.
After that, eat it with your, loins girded on your feet, and eat it hurriedly. So we wait, and then we're in a rush. So it's a dichotomy there in terms of, how this, what's going on, and the instructions from God.
Yeah, I like that it says that you have to be dressed to wear it. Like, in case you didn't know that's how you, like, were people walking around naked all the time? I don't know. But if that's what loining your girds are, I don't know. But you have to be dressed. And so it is a combination of waiting and hurrying at the same time. So then David, last question on this. Yeah, building off of Sue's idea that you have to make sure that everyone's included in this. Great. It's just it's an example of when we slow down, because we've all read this before, but may not have noticed the difference between the dates. Okay, I said David would be the last one, so I'll stick with that. It'll just be David Farber.
The comment about watching it, the text actually reads a little bit differently. It's V'hayalachem lemishmeret. It's not the Shamarta Allah or Allah.
Right, Mishmeret.
The mishmeret. V'hayalachem, it should be for you lemishmeret. It's sort of a watch poster or something. Maybe it's the lamb that's watching us.
So who is watching whom? Right? Who is watching whom? That's beautiful too, of twisting it around like that. Okay, and sticking with it. David, yes. See, I said David. I was very frum about that. So, okay, David Margulies.
The lamb was an Egyptian god, essentially, and so the Egyptians were going to be coming after it. So protecting it is a little bit more than just feeding it and keeping it in your house. There are going to be enemies that are
Hiding it or so, right? And that it also makes the sacrifice all the more so, because we are sacrificing that Egyptian god, if you will.
maybe it's guarding against.
Your name is not David. It may be Chazan, but it is not David. So, to protect from this as well, which is familiar because the golden calf comes later. Okay, awesome. That was great. That's question number one. Then let's see, the other page that now I have to find what my question was here. Oh, I think I was interested here that it takes. I was interested here, and I looked back quickly at the beginning of Shemot. So Pharaoh wakes up in the middle of the night because the angel of death falls over. If you're interested in kind of weird angelology and angels and spirits and things like that, you should check out Miriam's latest TikToks, which are talking about weird angels and spirits in the bathroom. So yes, but I'm interested in why Pharaoh wakes up now and at no other point. Here, Pharaoh wakes up because of all of the cries. He finally hears the cries of the Egyptians. Why does God finally, after 400 years at the beginning of Shemot, why does he finally recognize that we've been in slavery for 400 years? Because he hears our cries. So the wording is slightly different between the two psukim that I glanced back, but it is still this idea. Again, it elevates Pharaoh to a sort of demigod position here, but it is when the cry of the people, it is what awakes the God of Israel. It is what awakes the God of Pharaoh, if you will, to his people. And I thought that was very interesting. But now I have my last question, which is actually something that I have been thinking a lot about, and I don't have an answer. It jumped out at me this morning again, which was good, because now we get to talk about it. So let's go to the Siddur, page 133 of the Siddur. So we're out of the Parsha, and we're just into the regular liturgy. So 133, and I'm looking at 5 lines down of this psalm. It's Psalm 33. So 5 lines down. And I even pencil marked it at some point along the way because it's always something I want to come back to and to figure it out. So someone want to read this 5th verse down, the Ohev line? Out loud? Okay. Ohev tzedakah u'mishpat, chesed Adonai mal'ah haaretz. Okay, so the Hebrew's not too difficult here. So what's Ohev? Love, right, exactly. So to love tzedakah, right, righteousness or something, and u'mishpat, what is mishpat? Justice, laws, okay. And chesed, we know chesed, compassion, rachamim, or chesed, right? Chesed, so God's chesed fills the land, okay? Fills the earth. So here's what I've marked that I want to think about more. That there's 3 words here, right? That God loves, or he loves tzedakah and mishpat, okay? But it is chesed, that God's chesed that fills the earth. So there are 3 distinct things, tzedakah, mishpat, and chesed. Right? And they're not synonyms for each other, but let's figure out how we would define them for the next couple of minutes, what we might offer. Because what is it that that this fills all of the land? This fills the earth, right? God's chesed, love and kindness is how they translate it. But it's chesed is connected to tzedakah and mishpat. But they're distinct. Yeah, Michael.
Not only distinct, it's sort of the remedy. Mishpat is strict judgment, right?
Right, strict judgment.
It has to do with rights, but chesed, there's nothing in exchange. Chesed is the relationship, the thing that the relationship between 2 people who are dependent on each other.
So that chesed is the result of tzedakah and mishpat?
These are 2 separate things. I think that
Yeah.
he on one hand, God loves tzedakah and mishpat.
God loves tzedakah and mishpat. You're right.
And you could say nevertheless, you could say also his gracious, the good things that he does not because of tzedakah and mishpat fill the land.
Yeah, I'm interested in, I guess if I were to pinpoint it, it would be what the Siddur puts a comma there. I'm interested in the space of that comma. Like what happens in that space in the Siddur right there that sort of is the bridge between these concepts here.
If you have too much justice, al pi hadin,
Uh-huh.
right, the letter of the law, that's not what we want. Justice is important, but this chesed is that missing piece. They go together.
Chesed is sort of an overlay. Each of these characteristics, tzedakah and mishpat, have to maintain a characteristic of chesed in them, is what I'm proposing. But yes, Michael is expanding. Yes, Suzanne.
To me, it's you need to temper justice with mercy.
To temper justice with mercy. Yeah, because if it was just the letter of the law, you were saying, if it was just mishpat, cold mishpat, then you would end up in the wrong place or the place you don't want to be. Yeah, Deborah.
So, the two are about action. They're about choice and they're about how we interact with others. But the filling of the world with kindness is just the positivity that should exist, whether or not we're interacting with any other human being. And that just is. And we have the choice as humans of whether or not we need righteousness and justice in the first place, because needing that means that something maybe negative had to have happened. But if we use the goodness and the kindness, we hopefully wouldn't have needed to enact for justice in the first place.
Yeah, in a sense that if chesed is the primary or first characteristic that we walk through the world with, it would give us a different veil for tzedakah and mishpat, right? Rather than, here is, if we just look at this in a linear way, it's the third characteristic, but maybe it's really our first characteristic, of which then we need to see these others. Donna.
Turn it around.
Great.
Chesed fills the world, but tzedakah and mishpat don't fill the world. They are in isolated places within the world. Chesed fills in the space in between and makes it possible to exercise righteousness and justice without cruelty.
I love it. I love unpacking this. Yeah, absolutely. That it energizes the chesed energizes tzedakah and mishpat. Yeah.
I'll actually go back and connect it to the Parsha for you,
Great.
where tzedakah and mishpat are actions and pro-actions that we have to take in order for God to fill the world with chesed. Just like we had to take the land, when we had to put the mezuzah, we had to be proactive in order for Hashem to save us from the angel of death.
I love it. So that tzedakah and mishpat are things that we have to do, and here the psalmist is saying God likes that, God loves that, and we have to do it. And the world and God's part of it is filled with chesed. It always reminds me about tefillin, right? So tefillin is, right, they say that there's two knots, right? The knot on the head and the knot on the arm, right? A daled and a yud, right? But then we have to, what's the letter that we create on our hand? A shin, right, a shin. So those three words together, Shaddai, are one of the names of God. But whereas God may do 2/3 of the work, nothing happens until we create the work of our hands with the shin. Right? So that maybe that is like what you are pointing out here. Until we do our work, until we create the shin of the tefillin, or we bring into the world tzedakah and mishpat, right? God will do the daled and the ayin. The daled and the yud. Right? God will do the greater work, but nothing will happen until we show up. So, yeah, Jamie, and then I think there was right, so 1, 2. Yeah.
The difference, at least I see between them, is that righteousness and justice, along with law and things similar to that, are external. Laws are imposed upon us, whereas compassion is completely voluntary. You can choose not to be kind to people. You shouldn't, but it's not forced upon you to be kind.
I love it that the first two characteristics are sort of external things that you do and how you, I'll say, manipulate the world, how you interact in the world, but chesed is something that's internal. Beautiful. Yeah, in the back, and then we'll give the Lysses the last word.
I love all the interpretations, but to me, when I read this, it's really more prosaic. We're offering the first 3 paragraphs are about praising God. We like righteousness and justice in our daily lives, and God loves it too. So we're reminding ourselves and praising God. The world is filled with love and kindness. That's all
Great. Right. So in rabbinic commentary, some like the more mystic, metaphoric interpretations, but you just like it straight. Like, what is it actually saying? And that's okay too. Radak and others, that's what they like as well. So, Anne, okay, the list is last.
I'm not sure about this, but it says that Psalm 33 was inserted by Jewish mystics, and in Lurianic Kabbalah, like I'm pretty sure like God is like shattered, right, in a way, and doing mitzvahs will help like fulfill and like bring them all together. And so by doing righteousness and justice, which sounds like like mitzvahs, it will sort of bring out God's love and kindness.
Excellent, great, right. So the Kabbalists didn't write the Psalms, but the Kabbalists helped codify the Siddur, and so bringing this psalm and putting it in, you're suggesting that maybe this is an act of tikkun, right? That Lurianic Kabbalah is the founding of what we think of as tikkun olam, the modern sense of tikkun olam, and that whereas God, the question was asked, and this is just sort of a basic physics before there was physics. How could the world be created if God's essence filled the entire world? How could anything else fit into that place, right? How could all the days of creation happen, right, if God filled the world? And so Lurianic Kabbalah says that God had to have tzimtzum, retreat, and leave space for other things to fill the earth. All of the days of creation, the stars, trees, us, etc. And then what do you do with God's essence? God put it in a warehouse, in a storehouse, in jars, but God's essence can't be contained and it explodes. And what we are doing, the tikkun that we are doing, is trying to bring that essence back. We are trying to repair those vessels, and that is the modern sense of tikkun olam, of repairing the world. And we repair the world through doing acts of repair that we do. So yeah, it is possible that the Kabbalists brought this in to remind us that the way that we do this tikkun is through tzedakah and through mishpat, through the lens of chesed. So I'll just end with this. The challenge of a verse like this is how we look at the war in Israel. Right? That the war, right? Otherwise this just sits flat on a page. Right? But how are we, that moment, that comma in the space in between the letters and the words, right? The friction between I believe in chesed and I believe in mishpat, the friction between those is exactly the friction that we should feel. Because when we lose a sense of chesed, even for our enemies, we are lesser people. And if we exclusively look at mishpat and look at justice and we are imposing it without a sense of chesed, then we also lose our sense of self and who we are. So the friction between these values is where we should be. If you are not aware of the tragedies that are taking place, then your heart needs to be open wider. And if you are not determined for Israel to protect itself, then your heart needs to be open more. So a simple verse can challenge us in profound ways. If we slow down, look for the questions that are underneath it, and accept that we may not have the answers, but the questions together are certainly fun. Shabbat Shalom. So, Rabbi Abramson is going to lead us Chatzi Kaddish and into Musaf.